I'm not
Recording
hearing
in
it.
progress.
Hey, hey, is this everybody? You're on mute,
Louise, you're on mute. I
Adam
think we're waiting for.
and Philip's supposed to be joining us. Let me call Philip. Adam just called, so he's joining us.
Okay.
Oh, good. Okay. Cole, where are you? And John, where are you guys based?
John, you want to go first?
No, she asked you first, Cole.
All righty. I'm located in southeastern Massachusetts, just before the arm of Cape Cod. It's currently 80 degrees out, which is pretty nice.
Can't ask for more.
That's right. And I'm in upstate New York, Rochester, where it is a balmy 70 or so, and very pleasant. How about you, Annabelle? Baltimore, Maryland,
No, I'm actually in Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh?
Yeah. I was in the DC area, Baltimore briefly, but I've been in Pittsburgh since COVID started. I split my time between here and Little Farm in West Virginia. So it's
Nice.
it's about 80 degrees.
What do you do? What kind of farming do you do, if any, actual farming?
Well, we are trying to get started on mushrooms and microgreens, but at the moment, I rented out the pastures to a fellow with some cows. He's breeding cows. And I just started a little tiny organic vegetable garden just to have some vegetables, but it's not a legit farm yet. Hi, Philip. I know Philip.
Right, Annabelle, I gather you know Philip. I don't know if you know Louise, but Philip,
Oh,
since
yeah.
you're the link, maybe you'll make the set the stage.
Louise and Annabelle have known each other for decades, and she's the link.
Not decades.
Okay.
A few years. Adam, I don't know if you want to introduce yourself briefly, or to Annabelle was just asking all of us where we're located.
Philip, you're in suburban Maryland, right? Bethesda, is that right?
I'm in Tacoma Park.
Tacoma Park. Ah, the best little community in the DC area.
Because Annabelle lived in Silver Spring, right, Annabelle?
Yeah, but I long to live in Tacoma Park for a year.
A lot of us.
Yeah, it's great. Hello, Adam. I don't think we've
Hi,
met.
Annabelle.
Have we
I
met?
live in Cambridge, Massachusetts,
Oh, I've
and
lived
it's 75
in Cambridge.
degrees here.
Oh, good. Well, it's
And-
nice to connect with all of you. Yes, Louise and I are very good friends. And although not decades, haven't known. But I think we're here because Louise said she kind of could use some help thinking through marketing, how to build a movement, how to really scale up, things like that. But I don't know if all of you guys are on the same page about what this call is about and what you're interested in doing in terms of just improving communication and building a movement. Are there kind of
I actually suspect that it's. I don't know that we have any actual disagreements, but I think it's fair to say that we may not be on the same page right now. You should understand that you're dealing with two different configurations. There's biodiversity for a livable climate. Adam is the executive director. Philip is on the board. Cole is currently paid by them, but will not be in the foreseeable future. Louise is paid by them. And then there's the Eco Restoration Alliance, co-founded with Bio for Climate, which includes people from all over the world involved in the actual practice of eco-restoration, as well as in writing or making films about it, as well as doing some of the science to explain how it is that eco-restoration may be our best approach to solving the climate issues as well as all of the other biodiversity issues that are out there. So there are these two groups, Eco Restoration Alliance and Bio for Climate, and they absolutely share a common sort of understanding of the science and practice of eco restoration. And while Bio for Climate has been around for quite some time, Eco Restoration Alliance is going through its norming, forming, and storming stage, in which it's clear that we want to help facilitate the movement on the base of the quite rich global network of expertise that we have as members. But the membership collectively is still working on its process for deciding who it is, what they want to do, and how we're going to achieve our shared goal. And I think this is the shared goal for all of us, I would say, is to build the movement around eco-restoration as a way of addressing climate. I have some ideas for how to do that. I think everyone else probably has their own ideas as well, but that's my attempt to frame the network of issues for you.
And if I can just chime in with my favorite topic of cooling, I think eco-restoration in the service of restoring degraded lands around the world to put green back on what's brown has the best chance for actually addressing global warming. While we don't discount the need to reduce emissions, we have failed worse and worse every year to do that, and it will take decades to have any impact on the amount of carbon in the atmosphere, and it's going to take decades of work to do eco-restoration. But if we focus first on the areas that are most degraded, I think we might have a chance to actually cool the surface of the Earth in 10 or 15 years by 1 degree C if everything else doesn't, run away from us. John and I, Bio for Climate and others are collaborating with something called the Amazon Swarm, which is trying to draw attention to the fact that the Amazon basin has currently lost about 25% of its original forest, and a number of the scientists are worried that it's now entering a tipping point on the way from a tropical moist forest to a tropical dry savanna, and we have very few years, 2 to 5, to reverse that trend. We have a goal of restoring the forest to 80% of the original land area. Anyway, we're all collaborating, scrambling, and trying to get this message to be understood, and the number one message of focus in the mainstream media around the world.
So you're trying to communicate primarily with the media, or you're trying to kind of build a grassroots movement to reach people who could work together at the local neighborhood level? Are you trying to reach policymakers? Like, I mean, I'm sure you'd be great to reach everybody, but if you had to say focus on one group or prioritize one group, and that would sort of depend on, I guess, your theory of change, like what would lead to the kind of change that you're seeking. Because, if it's about policies, then yeah, you do need to reach policymakers and media. But if you have projects that can be tackled at the local level by people, right? Then that's a different kind of communication. So I guess my question is like, one, what's your theory of change? Is it about building a mass movement? Is it about trying to change policies? Is it about reaching scientists and knowledge makers? And then the following question is then, what is the story you're trying to tell? Or another way of putting it might be, and I'm sure you guys probably have some, understanding that there's a big difference between telling the story of why you do what you do, as opposed to what you do, as opposed to how you do it, right? And that why question really needs to be at the center of the communication so that people always know, oh, this is what this group is and this is why they do what they do, even though they might do 12 different things. They all relate back to this core why. So, so those are several different questions, but the first question is, do you have a theory of change, and what is that?
I want to go up one level. And Louise, you brought us together, and thank you. I can answer that tentatively. I can answer that pretty confidently for what I think is my theory of change, and which I'm going to be advancing marketing into the alliance in general to see if to make sure that everyone is behind it. That would, so I have an answer I could give. I don't know that it's the same answer as for Bio for Climate, and I don't know whether you, Annabelle, are in a position to try
John, why
on
don't you
two
just give your
hats
answer?
at the same
Just give
time.
your answer.
My answer is that I think many of us feel that policymakers have failed, and that in some ways we need to take the initiative ourselves. And so my theory of change is we need to get, quote, almost everyone, almost everywhere, taking responsibility and amending the particular patches of land they have access to. And so that's a grassroots movement. If you've got a lawn, you should replace the grass with things that will be better for birds and bees and cooling and climate mitigation, et cetera. If you have a farm, there are certain practices that will make a real difference for the climate and so on. Now, my particular way of advancing that theory of change is I'm imagining, if you will, a Google Earth kind of a display that will
Oh,
have.
you know what? Why don't we go around a little bit? So why don't you
Sure.
hold off on that? Because those are, that's getting into detail. So
Good.
how about all of rest of you? Do you have an answer to the question? What is your theory of change?
My theory of change is that we are all entirely reliant on the habitats in which we live. And the habitats limit our repertoire of responses. And out of the limited repertoire, we need to pick one or more that take us in the direction of maximizing our, I'm going to struggle for words here, optimizing our use of Earth's resources.
Wait, hang on a second. I think you might be on to the how question. So let me ask you a different way. What kind of people need to be mobilized right now in order for you to effect change, in your opinion?
Journalists, I mean, number one is people on the ground, and it's already happening in a big way, even though we hardly ever read about it. It's happening all over the world. Probably the US is one of the least happening, or
Right.
one of the less happening places.
So when you say people on the ground, you mean just like ordinary people who are taking initiative to create projects with their peers?
They're farming. They're growing
farming.
food, and they try to grow extra food, and they're sharing it or selling it in the marketplace wherever they are.
Okay, so you wanna mobilize farmers. Is that your theory of change? Like the fastest way to go from point A to point B right now for you is to mobilize farmers?
Well, we're talking about a system, a global system of many interconnected things. So mobilizing farmers is one step, one way of stepping into the system and affecting changes in the system. For example, can I give an example?
No,
Not
actually,
yet. Okay.
yeah, because that's again going into detail about how you want to
Okay.
do this. But what I'm interested in is when I say theory of change is who needs to change their behavior or thoughts.
Well, everybody does, just
But
about.
but in order for you to create change right now,
Mhm.
maximize your efforts, who do you need to reach?
We need to reach funders. We need to reach millions of people around the world um, probably through social media. I suppose we need to reach policymakers, although I'm not sure that that's the primary thing to do. To a certain extent, I mean, the USDA has started to go much bigger on the regenerative farming path than it has
Oh,
in the past.
so
so
regenerative
that's
farming is central to what you're doing, right?
well, it's part of what's central. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay, how about you guys, Cole or Philip or Louise? Do you have any answers to that question about theory of change?
You said my name first, so I guess I'm up. I would say that the people we need to be reaching first and foremost would be those of the younger generation. So college students, high schoolers, even middle schoolers to some extent. I think they're the ones who have the most skin in the game for enacting change and also have the most influence on what can be changed. They're the ones who are going to inherit the world. They're the ones who can go home, and even if you get little toddlers on board, they can go home and bug their parents about why don't we have more trees in the yard. So if we were to focus on one group, that would be mine, is the youth.
So then that would also include probably people who work with the youth, like, you know, teachers,
Right, teachers,
mentors,
school systems.
civic groups that focus on working with the youth, so on. Okay. Okay. How about you, Philip or Louise?
I spoke at length before. You want to go first, Louise?
Sure. I think we need a comprehensive approach, similar to what Adam said, except that I think the primary emphasis needs to be on the people. But I think we can leverage other pieces of change, opportunities for change, like policy, and the other things that funders, et cetera, the things that you mentioned.
Wait a second. I just want to clarify. We're focused on communication right now. So it's necessarily about reaching people. I'm not asking about how to fix the climate right now. I'm talking about like how do we reach people and who needs to be reached with what message, okay, in order to get to those solutions, climate solutions. So let's not think about the climate solutions for right now, but let's think about who we want to reach. What do we want them to do once we reach them? Okay. Yeah.
So again, for me, it's a comprehensive approach to primarily to people. It's a grassroots movement to individuals and groups of like mind that can mobilize on the ground doing eco restoration. I think that's the primary target audience. The secondary target audiences, with an S, are the other layers like governments, funders, and media, like journalists. So I would have a two-tier approach, but definitely focus on the people first, the grassroots movement of people actually doing eco restoration. That's my
Okay.
thinking. Thanks.
Okay. So maybe Philip, maybe you could bring it home. So maybe another way of thinking about this answer is it a bottom up movement? Is it a middle out movement of people who are like more influencing culture and people who run nonprofits like civil society people? Or is it more of a top to bottom approach going after lawmakers, policymakers, big funders, big foundations?
So I'm putting in the chat one of my main organizing tools, which is a way of thinking about how to make change in systems. And I guess my theory of change is that we would be most effective if we can work at the highest levels of this, which is the paradigm that we exist inside. So the primary audience are the storytellers, the educators, the journalists, the people that help us interpret and understand who we are in the world. And I think there are four natural ally and audiences. One is the environmentalists, who some of us would think are not telling the right story, but are at least allied in the goals. The second is farmers. There's a couple billion farmers around the world who are already deployed as land managers. And if we can help them change the story about how they relate to the land, there's a powerful movement that could make an impact on the climate. Cole mentioned the young people, the college age, so it's obviously the educators, and then I've already mentioned the sort of journalists who I think, the influencers, whoever. I mean, that audience is no longer as clear as it once was. It's many different avenues. The challenge for us is that we're tiny, and we have to be opportunistic at the moment to exploit whatever avenues we can, but perhaps you are asking some very important questions that might help us sharpen our focus and better deploy our resources. So thank you.
Sure. When you say tiny, do you mean the movement is tiny or your particular social network? Your particular social network. Okay. Okay. So
BioForClimate is maybe 20, 24 people. The Alliance, the core is maybe 100 and maybe 70 groups around the world, but still relatively speaking tiny.
Okay. So I think one way of maybe tackling this is, I think this is just my opinion, is that where the climate movement in general gets stuck is there's like a missing piece to our communication, which is what I would call translation. Like there's a lot of scientific or data-driven literature, and it's really hard to kind of interpret and process that to the point where you have series of clear actions that follow from the data and the science. So what happens is often you have these you have this layer, the strata of people just talking to one another, like people who understand the science. And they get frustrated because they know the science, but it's like very hard to then affect behavioral change in like the rest of society, the middle
Annabelle,
the grassroots.
can I interrupt for a second?
Sure.
Part of our problem is
Mhm.
that we look at the science very differently from the way the mainstream IPCC cohort looks at the science. So
Okay.
when we talk about the science, there is no the science. There
Mhm.
are at least two sciences,
Mhm.
and ours is the biological version, and
Okay.
IPC is the physical chemical version. And
Okay. Well, can I think I can include that in my analysis. But thank you for pointing it out. But let me just see if I can kind of take you through what I think is a missing piece, missing ingredient to, in general, that's been plaguing many efforts at trying to reach the grassroots or the public, to really shift public opinion and behavior change by anybody working in climate. Um, and so there's sort of a linguistic problem in general, um, having just people just not understanding the science, and I don't mean the science as if there's only one scientific interpretation
No,
of
I
data.
think that's right. We
Yeah,
have a particular variation on that, but you're
yeah,
right, I think.
yeah. But in general, like I'm just looking at these three groups, the top meaning like people who are doing the research and policy and like big funders. The middle out people who are influencers and journalists, cultural figures, and then like the grassroots. So there's just like a translation problem all the way down, like people just not really literally understanding what's being said by one group, you know. And that's the part, that's the logjam that I think that really needs to be tackled if there's going to be something very different about this effort. Otherwise, we're just going to be kind of churning out like the same old problems of people just lacking translation, just not people not really being able to process the information to the point where you're like people at the grassroots level are like, oh my God, I get that. It's empowering. I'm going to do something, because it can't just be like they get it. They have to feel like, damn it, I can do something. I don't have to just feel like, oh my God, climate change is scary. I can't do anything. There's nothing I can do, because that's kind of where most people are at right now. It's just like, there's not a damn thing I can do, right? So it's just another thing that makes me feel helpless. And but to kind of give people the kind of information that we're in depth with them feeling like, wow, this changes my life. That's,
uh,
I think, where we want people to be, to give them that kind of information and to kind of have the flow of information that will result in that reaction from just the grassroots. Yeah. Adam, yeah. Mhm.
we've done in the past 9 years
Mhm.
a lot of storytelling,
Mhm.
and our videos have been viewed over 300,000 times. And the stories are about, not entirely, there is some more complicated science in there from time to time, but the stories are about what people are doing in their neighborhoods. And we want to augment that effect.
Okay, so are you disagreeing with what I'm saying, Adam?
I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying in general.
Okay. Okay.
Uh,
So what?
I'm just saying that
Yeah.
we're mostly not in that bucket,
Which bucket?
I'm sorry.
the bucket of the incomprehensible. I mean, we tell stories with real people doing real things all over the world, and it's examples of what can be done. And we also encourage people to do all kinds of local solutions that are
Okay,
generally non-technical. So
what kind of help do you need then? Because I mean, I don't mean like when I say there's a translation issue, I don't mean
Mhm.
like you're trapped in the so-called incomprehensible. It just means that all along the way, somewhere along the way, there are challenges to the point where there isn't this massive mobilization of people, like feeling
well,
empowered and, taking
mhm.
action. Yeah,
Well,
John?
I think we want to reach more people.
Okay, great. John?
I was going to say, I do think
Hmm.
you're right, Annabelle,
Uh-huh.
that um, most people are failing to be reached with a compelling, actionable understanding of the climate problem. And while Bio for Climate has led the way in exposing those of us who believe it to an actionable path, it is not getting through as effectively as it needs to. There 300,000 viewers is one thing. 300,000 believers would be fantastic, and 3 billion actors is probably what we need. And it's not clear to me that Bio for Climate's current methodologies, although they're absolutely foundational to our shared understanding, is going to get us there, which I think is why I really appreciate your insistence, Annabelle, that we try to clarify and sharpen the spear and point it in a particular direction. But I want, but this is where we're at. You're on mute.
Yeah, and so Adam, I might have given you the impression being critical. I'm sure you've done wonderful things, but I was just talking in general about the climate change movement,
Yeah,
and sort of the challenges that I've seen with the climate change movement.
absolutely. I
Yeah,
completely
so
agree with you.
yeah,
And
okay,
I was just trying to clarify. I mean,
right, okay, but
being
let me ask
critical
you
is fine.
something.
That's why we're here.
Yeah, let me ask you something. What if, what do you think would make a difference if instead of 300,000 views, there were 30 million views?
Um, it might make some difference to some people.
I think Annabelle's question is, is that a good goal to go from 300,000 to 30 million, or would that be focusing the wrong way? If I understand it correctly, Annabelle, you're forcing us to realize that we don't have a well-defined target goal, and so it's not possible for you to say, here's how I can help you reach it yet.
Well, I mean, no, it's like I'm just trying to see, um, let's imagine we're building a car together in order to go from point A, where we are, to point B, because we all agree this is where we are, but we really need to be over there, right? If we want to create change. So let's say we're building a car to get us from point A to point B. So what are the components of that car, right? And one of them is having clarity about we should be in the car. What's going to power this car? I mean, there are just certain basic questions we want to answer, right? And so but Adam's saying he seems a little skeptical there's a difference between 300,000 views versus 30 million views.
It depends
Makes
upon what the
me,
views do for
well,
people, how they're equipped to respond to them.
yeah, I mean, I think, we can talk about that, but just kind of as a general rule, is that a good goal to have to,
Sure.
okay. I feel like I'm sensing like you're feeling a little frustrated, Adam, that I'm not
No more
understanding.
frustrated than I've been over the past 9 years.
Well, is there anything I can do to like help you feel less frustrated about like this whole discussion? Like, is there
No,
something that you're looking
just,
for?
no, Annabelle, you're doing
No.
fine.
Okay.
Please, please keep going. And I'm just responding to you as you go. And I can shut up too.
Well, I'm just sensing frustration, Adam.
Yeah,
So I'm just trying to figure out
that's,
like what's at the core of the tension.
it's
Like,
not
oh.
peculiar to this particular meeting, I assure you.
But you're just frustrated with the lack of clarity about how to communicate about this, or I'm just curious what the
We are in an ecological
Mhm.
and climate emergency. The climate emergency is a
Yeah,
subset of the ecological emergency.
absolutely,
And it's getting worse fast. And
absolutely. Mhm.
it's, you know, I mean, I've been um, a, a climate pessimist, a biodiversity pessimist for a long time. And um, we keep trying harder and harder, as do many other groups. And it gets worse and worse. So, I mean, how do you deal with that? Um, and I think you're absolutely right that communicating this stuff is key. And I mean, I've been in the climate business for 20 years, and all kinds of people have come up with, oh, this is how you should do it. Oh, you should, not scare people. Oh, you should scare people. Or, uh, you know, it's been going round and round, and nobody has figured out how to do it. And I think there are good reasons for that. And it has to do with human beings at our core, that we don't want to deal with distant, long-term, although it's not so long-term anymore, uh, challenges, because we've got the ones that are right in front of our face today, and those quite naturally would take priority. And so it's going to be difficult to tell people who have to get to work in their clunker car and do it with gasoline, tell them that, well, that's terrible. You can't do that. You shouldn't do that, because they have no other way that they can see, or even realistically, to survive. So the message we're trying to give in some ways is paradoxical. And that's one of the strong suits of talking about regenerative agriculture and other regenerative processes is, I mean, we make lots of effort not to scare people.
Well,
But
what would you like to get out of this conversation today? Like, are you so frustrated and skeptical that you don't really see a way out? Or do you feel like
I persist in
Mhm.
seeing ways out, whether they're real or not,
Okay,
because
well,
that's how I
could
keep
you
going, and that's how I keep
okay,
other people going.
okay, well, could you do me a favor, Adam, then? I would like to kind of clear space for us to brainstorm
Sure.
without, like, there are no wrong answers.
Hmm.
We're gonna clear our heads and pretend we're optimistic and hopeful. Okay? As a game. As a game. I know we're all frustrated. I am too. And I'm completely with you, Adam. Okay? And by 8 o'clock, will sound almost exactly like you, because I always feel so frustrated at the end of the day, like, what the hell, about so many
Hmm.
things. But for the purpose of today, if you could try to put your frustration aside and just see if we could playfully
Sure.
brainstorm and just get creative, okay? And then see what happens. See if we could come up with something that gives us a way forward, okay? So let's do that. And in fact, just as an experiment, could we all turn off our cameras Okay. And okay. So let's all turn off our cameras and let's see if we could just focus on generating ideas. And there, again, no bad answers. Okay. We're just a group of people. You know, John Rawls called it behind a veil of ignorance, meaning like, let's forget about like the details of what our responsibility is or what our position is. Let's just see if we could come up with some ideas. And so some of the ideas that we could come up with are totally doable. Like we could start doing it today. And some of the ideas we come up with will take years, years and years. It's going to require fundraising, blah, blah, blah. I don't want you to worry about that. Like, you know, things that would take, it's like moving a mountain, and things that are like, you know, low hanging fruit, no brainer. Let's just forget about categorizing all that. Let's just see, come up with some ideas like, what can we do to communicate to any level, whether it's grassroots, the middle people, it's the top people. Let's just come up with some ideas that might, doesn't matter if it's wacky, just see if we could come up with some ideas that would get us inspired into doing stuff. Okay, so it's like popcorn, just start calling things out. So so just stay on mute. Whenever you're ready to talk, unmute and just go forward. So I am going to go first, but just be prepared with some ideas and don't be critical. Just see if you can suspend criticism. So my idea would be to create a podcast with young people interested in this, in regenerative farming, among other things. Okay, John?
My idea is to have Fridays for Future Kids. Instead of holding placards, they're throwing seed bombs onto exposed ground in every city in the world.
Okay, great. Cole, I'm going to call on you.
Alrighty, my idea would be to start doing as many on the grounds projects as we can. And while we're doing them in whatever region we're in, reaching out to local high schools, colleges, or other education programs and inviting them to bring students on board to fulfill the work.
Okay, Louise.
One idea is to put animals onto national park, and like grazing animals, wild grazing animals onto national parks throughout the world.
Philip.
I think we should have a campaign mimicking what the woman did at the French Open by gluing herself to the net with a message, and we should figure out what those messages should be.
Adam.
I don't have something yet.
Okay, we'll come back to you. Paula. Paula, you're on mute.
Am I unmuted now?
Yes.
Hi, Annabelle. It's nice to see you again. Yeah, in a way, I'm drawing a blank because I feel like what I'm working on right now is important, but in terms of overall importance, that is getting the message about eco-restoration out and about, yeah, through public broadcasting, through networks, through potentially big megaphones that reach a certain range of people.
Okay, great. Thank you, Paula. Okay, my next idea would be a 24-hour climate change focused cable news station. So it's like CNN, but like focused on climate related stories. John.
Mhm.
John, can you unmute and
Sorry, I want something like Google Earth that is covered with little stickers of pictures like Annabel and Cole and their backyards and what they are doing to restore cool greenery to the world.
Paula, would you mind muting yourself so everybody
Oh, sorry.
knows?
I
Please
thought I
mute if you're
was.
not talking. Okay. Okay. Um, Cole?
If we went around and started forming community groups that would focus on backyard rewilding. So it would be like a neighborhood full of people all show up at one of the houses on the block, work all day to get the yard converted, and then would move on to another house the next day or the next week, depending on how long it takes.
Luis?
We create a short video and post it on social media that goes viral about cooling the earth.
Philip?
Yeah, something similar. I think we have to create an ice bucket challenge around the idea of cooling the earth.
Adam?
I would like to hire a lot more young people.
Paula? You're muted.
Yeah, I'd like to increase awareness that there are people all over the planet with knowledge. I really want to raise the voices of indigenous peoples, not just the knowledge, but total turnaround in terms of respecting who has known how to protect the planet and the ecosystems, and way beyond saying they should have a voice at the table. Introduce the perspective that they actually are teachers, that they are our teachers.
Hmm. Okay. Thank you. So I'm gonna pause there for a second with the brainstorm. I think there were some really interesting ideas. I think that you know, there are things that we can do, I think immediately, right? Like, creating a video, trying to get it to go viral, things like that. I think, I mean, we can certainly tackle that. I wouldn't put all our eggs in one basket and do like a professional video that takes thousands of dollars and then gets 300 views. I would probably be more inclined to find talented people, especially young people, to create like a TikTok account and see if they could just churn out a bunch of very quick videos that could go viral on TikTok, as opposed to like, you know. So, but I think, there definitely needs to be like a series of messages that we would want to communicate in all these different ways, actions that people can take. And I think we could have like a communication ecosystem where you don't have just like one type of communication, but there's like a variety. So there's like diversity in how we communicate. So we could have a downloadable syllabus that teachers can use. We could have a little memorandum, or we could have a little report that would be really appealing to journalists covering this, right? That really need to know what the facts are. We could have little videos that young people would like that would go viral. We could have things that are core. I mean, I think we could have like real diversity of content and kind of figure out like how to create a content factory so we could get a lot out there, right? Because I think that's sort of like how that is really like the best way to try to do this is to just create a lot of stuff, right? Instead of just like producing one report and then getting frustrated that no one's read it, or producing one video once a year that doesn't go viral. And then you're like, oh, we wasted all this money on this video that no one watched, you know, or like you do one webinar that several dozen people come to, and then there's like nothing that grows out of it, you know. So I think what we can do is like create like an ecosystem, but I think the way to really make it scale is to create an online community along with it, like using a platform like maybe something like the Mighty Network is a like one of those like online building community building platforms, and sort of there are other things like it, but try to create some sort of an online community, right, where there different topics could be explored. Some people are using Discord. I find Discord a little intimidating. Just, I don't know. I can't get into the interface, but there are just different tools that people can use to try to create community. But I think you can create a community where different types of people can communicate. Like there could be channels that are focused more for journalists. You know, there could be one that's focused more appealing for young people. So we could have like real diversity, and we don't have to choose like one way of communicating, because it could be that we have a lot of success creating content for people to go from like sitting at home in Brooklyn feeling pissed off at their jobs and how much rent they pay, to them saying, I'm going to buy a farm and I'm going to do this regenerative farming and I'm going to bring a bunch of my friends along with me, right? It could be that we create something that like really takes off and gets lots of people to actually do that. But like I think we won't know until we actually start doing some of these things. What is kind of going to be like the thing that really propels us and the movement, right? So instead of like trying to agree on like one thing, I think we have to see if we can create like a way to do a bunch of things, empower people to do a bunch of things, and experiment to see what's going to work and who's going to have success. Because this is kind of what happened with the tiny house movement, is just like a couple of people just started churning out a bunch of videos going from one tiny house to another, and then that person then inspired these people, and then it just, now there are just so many people creating content about building tiny houses or have going like doing van life, right? And you can trace it back to like a few people who kind of got it started, but suddenly there's an explosion. So it doesn't matter who started it. Like there's suddenly this movement of people living in vans, people living in tiny houses, and so on. And so I think that that kind of organic growth could happen, but it's not necessarily like we can at the outset know exactly how to make that happen. I think we have to kind of be willing to take some risks, try things, and see what is going to stick. And we might get lucky and find people with sort of the right talent and the voice. You know, we might be able to recruit people already active on TikTok to say, hey, can you do a video about this? You know, about regenerative farming, or, you know, I mean, so we're not sure, but I think that there's a kind of, what happens is when different people come together to work together in sort of coalition style, there's kind of a scarcity of resources and this idea that we can only afford to do one thing, you know. And there are terrible things about social media, but one good thing about social media is that it can be very inexpensive to create content, right? It's really a matter of finding motivated, creative people, right, to do it.
I'm quite sympathetic to that approach.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah,
not completely clear how you go forward with it.
mhm.
I have a scheme similar to that I've been noodling, so I'd be interested in pursuing that. I'd be also interested in understanding how you could help us do it with.
Yeah, so I mean, I think there's sort of, I'm trying to address sort of a cultural problem that I see with many progressive groups. So please don't take this personally. I'm not making an observation. I'm just saying my experience is that often people are coming at it from the place of scarcity and this feeling like you can only do one thing. And I'm saying we've got to find a way to kind of give each other room to experiment with a bunch of different ways to do this, right? And not be like, wait a second, you made a silly video, John. Why did you make a silly video? That makes us look bad. Or, you know, or we can't have a 12-year-old, you know, doing a video for us. Like, you know, just, but I think we have to kind of figure out a way in which we have to create like a village where it can be, we can include a bunch of different ways we talk about this and just kind of start like floating it out there. And some of this will work really well with scientists. Some of this will work well with children. Some of this will work well with journalists. And know that we do have to talk to everybody. And it could be that our strength, turns out, is really in finding artists who are going to bring a lot of creativity to this. So it could be that we could recruit artists or hire artists to come up with inspiring images, create little videos. And I guess that's something I would like to really see happen with the movement. And also like something I enjoy doing is like you know, just allowing for more creativity in the space. And really making it inviting for artists, because artists often don't like working with organizations because, you know, they just get too much pushback, or they just feel like they can't be creative, and people are giving them notes that it just doesn't work for them. You know, so it's hard for artists to actually work with organizations. But what we could do is like figure out a way to really empower people to get creative. And that would be, I think, like just something that we can work on, like as a group of people. Like how do we allow for that creativity to flourish? Does that make sense? Like, I don't know if this is just confusing you guys or makes sense.
Yeah, to me, it does make sense. We already have social media presences, and our members, as well as hundreds of groups around the world on Facebook and elsewhere, are actually doing a pretty good job of generating a variety of content. Not too much that's sort of quirky and artsy. That would be a nice addition, but there is lots and lots of content out there. Finding a way of channeling it in order to reach critical mass is, I think, a good approach. I know how to say those
Right.
words. I don't know how to make it happen, but maybe you
Right.
can help.
Yeah, so one way to kind of allow for more creativity is not to put your brand on everything, because then that's when people get upset. Like, wait a second, you shouldn't use F words in a video that's been branded by our logo. Like, you know, or like, what, this person is twerking while farming? Like, no, that's crazy. Like, we can't do that, you know, just because it might get very creative. I don't know. And so I think this is why you can kind of create a network of sharing and supporting without being like, we have to put our logo on everything. You know,
Annabelle,
there's some things, yeah. Hmm.
I haven't been able to get back in visually. There's no way that I can do it. Can you? It tells me that you're in control of that.
No, I can't control your camera. So, no, I can't make
That would be
The
anything.
message
Cole or
is-
Dawn.
The message is that the host is not allowing the video to go on.
Yeah, Cole, it's the ERA.
It would be
Zoom link.
Cole, perhaps.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm looking into it right now, Paula. Hold on one moment.
okay.
So in any case, So that's one way we could think about this, is just like creating sort of a network of people sharing content, encouraging content, allowing for a lot more creativity. And also really, like if you see something, an artist or TikTok video maker doing something that's interesting, like, wow, if this person made a video about our subject, it could go viral because she's already getting millions of views, right? Talking about something else. Or maybe they're already environmental TikTok video people that you could reach out to and say, can you share this content with this message? So I think there are different ways that we can recruit people, but I think we have to kind of see this as a more organic movement effort as opposed to things that will get branded by the organization or the net or the coalition, right? Um, and but there are different ways you would benefit from that. Like let's say someone created a podcast, you could be a guest on the podcast with branded content, or like you could have people recommend you to foundations for the work you're doing. But I think just a lot of creativity gets squashed because of the branding issue, because you don't want like if you're getting money from a foundation, you're like,
Mhm.
oh no, we can't have this because like our development director would not like that. And then there's no creativity, and then end up with really boring stuff that never goes viral.
Excuse me, Annabelle. I'm sorry.
Mhm,
I have to go. I have another meeting to attend to.
mhm,
But I
okay.
do have one question for you. Where can I see your 9500 video?
Oh yeah, I will send you a link. I will send Louise a link.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I've
yeah,
seen the trailer. I want to see the whole thing.
sure, yeah, I'll
Oh,
send you a link.
put it in
Okay,
the
thanks,
email.
Adam. And see, anyone else have a thought before we start closing it?
Thanks a
Bye,
lot.
Adam. Thank you, Adam. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
I
My
will
thought is
say,
that,
Oh, Paula and then John. Go ahead, Paula.
okay, much of what you've been describing in terms of organic growth, I feel that's the way we've been operating. I mean, that is my sense of how biodiversity for a livable climate has operated all along.
You
And
recruited artists to your
that
project?
particular thing, no, we have a wonderful homegrown artist who's done some amazing work, and we have
Okay,
somebody on staff. But artists in particular, is that your particular focus, Annabelle?
but that was my suggestion, is
Yeah.
that we find people who are very creative and just create lots of content, right? And not necessarily branded as the organizations, but really find people. Like we could go on TikTok right now and look for people who could create the kind of content that would help the movement, you
I
know?
believe that
Mhm.
Tanya Roa, who's on vacation this week, actually has done that and connected with Eco Talk within TikTok, and she's been watching for people whose content, yeah, could be open to receiving our message. I don't know that she's how much follow up she's done, but yeah, this
Okay,
is
well, no, I mean, it's great that you guys have been doing it. I just think we can always do more. We can multiply. So,
I'm sure
John,
that's
what
true.
are your thoughts?
Um, the mechanics of doing that are a little mysterious. I created a 10,000 person social network based on viral videos about 8 years ago, somewhat accidentally. I mean, it's very hard to control that, but I have that experience, and it happened. It happened despite my best efforts. That is, I don't know how to make it happen in this context, and so I agree with you. If you're saying I would like to go out to TikTok and see if I can find some people and have them start generating content. I would be in favor of that. I don't understand the monetary or the technical issues. And we have a monetary problem, so that might be a showstopper, but I would be interested in trying some of these things. And I do think that a diversity of approaches is going to be appropriate because we're not clear.
Okay, Louise?
Yeah, I just lost my thought in response to something John had said.
Well, let's come back to you then.
Let's go.
Cole, and then Philip.
I didn't have my hand up, sorry. I was just touching my
Oh
phone.
no, I was calling in you because we're just kind of closing out, and
Oh,
I just wanted
gotcha.
to see
No,
if you have any thoughts.
I do agree. I think social media outreach will definitely be beneficial. One idea that I had was having someone go around to each of the ERA members' projects and making, media content based off of that. So with someone like ecosystem restoration camps, we could have someone go to several of their camps and make TikToks while they're working there, do Instagram posts and things like that. And then if they can have a little bit more substantial equipment like a camera, we could even create higher quality content like extended YouTube videos, or maybe even a compilation film with all of their experiences. I think that's something that young people especially would be interested in seeing these projects and seeing that the work is out there and that it's possible to get involved with it. I think that would be extremely beneficial.
Yeah. So let me just review the things that I'm recommending. One is lots of content, creating room for diversity and quantity. Two would be to create like an online community that could kind of be a container using a platform like the Mighty Network or something equivalent of that. But there are other things you could look at. The other thing is just it's like an institutional shift to just not want to brand everything, but really focus on the just like the larger movement, and because when you put logos on things, it just like makes people be less to be more risk averse and less creative. It just happens. And then the other thing is, I think that, this doesn't have to cost a lot. So to sort of like not be in the place of scarcity and like we, and to really move towards thinking like there are lots of possibilities here. There's a whole world of just communication possibility if you let go of the branding stuff and just focus on the content, so and then it will free you up, and it would also, there will be less tension in the relation in the coalition as well, because often people argue about what was in the video or not in the video, whatever.
Annabel, you've mentioned this several times. I'm not sure there's anyone who's fixed on attaching our brand to the content in question. I think that may not be a problem.
Okay, good. Then we can really focus on like really then taking a look at something like the tiny house movement and how it became a really viral movement as a whole, with a bunch of different people creating content, but it does motivate people to say, I'm gonna stop paying rent in my apartment and I'm gonna go like tiny. In our case, I'm gonna stop living in Tacoma Park. I'm gonna actually get a little farm somewhere. Things like that. I'm just like really focused on motivating behavioral change and making that the focus and making that go viral. instead of like, is this our video going viral? It doesn't matter, because it could be that your video will motivate somebody else who does make a viral video. You know what I mean? Like, it just, because we're just all communicating with each other. But instead of just communicating as like dozens of people, right? Let's just like see if we could really unleash the creativity that's possible in the movement, and just start feeding that. Just, feed the journalists, feed the grassroots, feed the scientists and the lawmakers. Just create like lots of different content, and make sure that we're sort of aware of what people are doing by being in this sort of like online community space where you could share your video. Like, hey, John makes a little video, like, and he just puts it in this platform, and then it gets picked up by somebody else who makes a TikTok video from it. You know what I mean? It's that kind of creativity and collaboration that I think would really unleash the potential. That's what I'm talking about. It's just like, let's be looser about this and see if we can just start like communicating with people where they're at. Anyway,
So one thing that I think that we have not done at Bio for Climate is create that community of people talking amongst themselves. And I think that's definitely an opportunity we could leverage and seize in a way, just like this group, they're calling themselves the grandmothers. They self-organized. And that was based on basically a charge from one of our staff, scientists, or one of our staff members who, he basically instilled that in them, become ambassadors, and they self-organized. They got together and started doing something. They're moving forward on some things. I think that's definitely something we could facilitate. And I had not considered the notion. I feel like you've like opened up my thinking. You've like helped me see outside of the 9 dots of,
Right.
what we're doing and the trajectory we're currently on, and say like,
Right.
kind of break that all up and just like look outside of that to like, I never thought of inspiring people that are influencers to do it, to tell that story themselves, or, that sounds very powerful. And I definitely get the unleashing creativity.
Yeah, because give you an example, like, as you know, Louise, I have this Facebook page with about 400,000 people on it. So I know what works on this page. I'm just going to share this. And even if you give me a cute little video, I might be like, but that's not going to work on my page. Because on my page, it's like, people love these little, very visual images that they don't even like video. They like these like very simple, easy to read visual images. So I posted this 2 hours ago. It has 13,000 shares on it, just organically, right? Because as soon as I saw this, I'm like, oh, this is going to work on my page. So like, I mean, you can't, I mean, and it only works for this page. Like, if I try to just put it on other pages, it's not going to have the same impact. If I tweet it, it's not going to have quite the same impact. So it's like, people kind of know what works with their network. And so you have to kind of give them enough nutrients so they can just kind of run with it. Instead of like saying, please share this. When it's like, it's not going to work on my page. Like, people just don't like, they're not going to want to share a webinar or a YouTube video on that page. So it doesn't matter. I could have 5 million people. It's not going to work. So it's like, you have to know that they're like these kind of really, they're like dialects. People have very specialized networks, and you just have to empower them to deliver that content in a way that's going to work on that page or that network. Does that make sense?
It does.
But just begging people to share your video that you spent $5,000 making is not going to do it.
Thanks,
I'm very-
Annabelle. I actually have to get ready for another meeting too.
Okay. Well, thanks, Paula, for joining. Okay. Well, I'm happy to talk to you guys again, but and maybe we can like maybe take a step in creating something together or something. But I have lots of other ideas that we could share. But let's call it a day for now, and
Did
then.
Philip want to share before we close out?
Oh,
Philip?
I'm so sorry, Philip. I'm so sorry. Why don't you do a closing comment?
I-
Sorry about that.
So I'm going to end on a down note, but I think the framing of it is that this is what's in my mind. We are past peak oil as of 2018. We are seeing, accelerating climate, global warming. Food is now growing as a number one issue around the world with a 20 to 30% cost in its price. And I think there's potentially an organizing opportunity there to get people to focus on what it takes to grow food without the fossil inputs. And a combination of as that becomes the number one issue for most people, my hope is that we have answers that people can follow that make sense and don't make things worse. So that's what I hope our little organization can contribute.
Okay, no, that's actually brilliant. Yeah, I think that there is an opportunity right now. And I think COVID was an opportunity also. People were willing to make serious lifestyle changes because of COVID. And with the food shortage and energy shortage, I think that people are willing to take a look at their lives and do something else. So I think there is an organizing opportunity here. So I think we can certainly talk more about that next time. But oh, actually, there's an immediate thing. I have a table at Networks Nation, which is like this big progressive conference, and it's going to be held in Pittsburgh, where I am, this year, which is very rare. They hardly ever come to Pittsburgh, but anyway, it's in Pittsburgh this year. So I'm going to have a physical table at this conference, meeting lots of people. So I could put some stuff out on that table with for you guys. So
When is
let me
that?
know. It's August 18th through the 20th. If you guys actually show up, that'd be even better. You can actually sit at the table. August 18th or 20th. It's networksnation.org. Yeah. I invited Louise already, but yeah, you guys should think about coming because it's a great way to influence people who are organizers.
I'll check it out.
Yeah, it's also fun. I think it's great fun. We'll make it fun. Anyway, it's
Well,
really
thank you
nice
very
meeting
much
you
for
guys.
joining us today.
Yeah, I'd be happy to talk again. And I do consider myself as part of the movement. And I would like to find a way to help you guys. One top of mind thing for your branding I would recommend is just like having more people in the photos instead of just nature. Because this isn't just about nature, it's about how we're impacted as people by climate change. So that's something for you
Nice
guys
point.
to
Thank you.
think
What
about.
page are you looking at right now, by the way?
The entire website,
Which
Bio-
website?
bio4climate.org.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Annabelle, I'm encouraged by what you've said. I am looking for the way to say go for it, and see what this turns out to mean.
Yeah, I mean, I think I could help you guys, at least at the level of really just creating space to just get creative and start making stuff. But really, we do need some investment in creating this kind of content factory and reaching out to a bunch of creative people. There needs to be some investment, but it's not a lot. And don't put all your money in one video. Whatever
Agreed.
you decide to do, do not do that. A lot of people make that mistake of putting a lot of money into one piece of content. You need a stream of content. You need a factory. So okay, well, good to see you guys. And
Well, before we go,
oh,
I would like to schedule another call with you, Annabelle, to have this discussion.
well, you know what?
Uh,
Let's do it by email.
Okay,
Yeah, because yeah, let's see if we could do it by email. But I'd be happy to talk to you guys again. Okay,
okay.
bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thanks a lot.